Let's make Rockstar. For this video, I'm going to try and speed it up by not drawing in everything. I already have most of the things drawn in. I'll show them to you. I'll show you certain things that I think need explanation, but let's get going. So let's listen to the, so first we're going to set our tempo to 90. Okay, so I turned off the conductor. I changed our value to 90. The song is in 90 BPM. Let's listen to the first two measures. 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. And just listen to that guitar. So we're going to put in 4 chords. There are 4 chords. Okay, so notice that the A flat plays for 1.5 beats. Okay, this is the and of beat 2, and we start with our B chord. Then we play that out for the rest of the measure, so that plays for 2.5 beats. Then we go to the same pattern, rhythmic length for the next chord, the B flat, which is 1.5 beats. And on the and of beat 2 of the second measure, we have another A flat chord. It's a minor 5, sharp 5. So sounds like this. Except if you listen to the actual song again, you hear that those chords kind of they strum. Ba-da-da-ding. They don't all play at the same time. So the way that I've come up with to do that, and we'll do it on the track that is not done yet, is to change your grid to 64th notes. All right, so we're going to zoom in quite a bit here. And we're going to shorten using the trim tool. And I'm always going to use the smart tool from here on out, but the trim tool. And we're going to have each note after the first one start a 64th note later than the previous one. Okay. Basically, that one's not starting later. Scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. And this is going to give us that effect. Okay, so I have one more to do. Done. Okay, now there's one other part of this that I think is important, because by starting these later, we've created a bit of a gap where the end of these chords now stop a little early. It might be getting a little picky, but I like to draw out the ends of these notes. We don't want them to overlap with the next set of notes, but I just think it's more natural sounding if the previous notes kind of sustain into the next ones. So it just takes another moment, and it's definitely not every note. And it sounds like this. All right, so that might be a subtle difference for some folks, but I think it's pretty important. All right, so that is the guitar, and I can get rid of that guitar no strum because I now have it already set up. This is a 2-measure pattern. So basically what we can do at this point is just duplicate it, because it does play twice for a total of 4 measures. At measure 5, the guitar starts doing what's called an arpeggio. And the arpeggio essentially, oh, interesting. We're missing a note. The arpeggio is all 16th notes. So I'm going to go back into 16th notes, and you can see that every 16th note on our grid is filled. And it's basically the same chords as the strum, but it's not all 4 notes of each chord. It tends to be the root, a middle note, and an octave above. And that sounds like this. You you know what is happening here is I think I have a note that is too long, so it cut off. Okay, and the only thing to pay attention to, because it do-do-da, do-do-da, that's a repeat. Do-do-da, 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 that repeats 3 times and then hits that G flat again. And at the end of it, we have this one that's an additional E that kind of leads into the repetition. Okay, that's all the guitar. And that kind of goes on and on and on and on throughout the whole song. There are some spots where it drops out or filters a little bit, but for the most part, once you get that 1 2 measure phrase, we're duplicating that. The strum part only plays again at the very end on the outro of the song. All right, let's move on to the drums. The drums, we're gonna do it, or I'm gonna suggest that we do it. Basically in a pattern that's basically the same. Now, what I did here is what I think we should do. All right, so this is how I suggest we do it. We're going to put in 16th notes for our hi-hats. Our drums are set up like this. This first measure is the exact same as the third measure. So measures 1 and measure 3 are exactly the same. Measure 2 and measure 4 are almost exact. Well, now they look exactly the same. They will be exactly the same except for these additional kick drums. Now, the reason that all of these look the same, I'm trying to make a point, kind of, in that, except for this last one, I could just take this first one and duplicate it and then go and add the differences, the subtle differences that actually make up the actual drum sound. So just as a reminder to myself, beat 3. All right, so the difference that we need to do now is that the drums don't play 16th notes the entire time. They play 16th notes most of the time. So I'm just going to solo the drums. On beat 3, they actually play 1 16th notes worth, but in 64ths. So what we need to do there is change our grid value to 64th notes. And here's a pretty cool little trick. Typically, your pencil is on the freehand tool, but if you click and hold and choose the line tool, you can draw in the value of your grid. And that gives us a 64th note. Notice how much darker these are than these. That's an issue of velocity. And what I want us to do is select all. We can select all of our hi-hats. And these lollipops here represent velocity, how hard that drum is being hit, or that note. And let's just raise those up all the way at this point. Okay, so I'm going to show you the completed drum pattern because we don't need to go through and make the whole thing again. So again, measure 1 and measure 3 are the exact same. Let's go back, it's easier to see in 16ths. Except for these 4 30-second notes on beat 3. I should say 1 and 3 are the exact same. On measure 2, where the kick drum and snare drums are the exact same, we add a second 64th note roll on beat 3. So beat 2, beat 3. And then the only difference between measures 2 and measure 4 of our loop is these extra kick drums. We also have the 2 64th note rolls. So here this is what that sounds like. The whole 4 measures of drums. Sorry. That's the drums. Now, I'm going to show you some additional drums. I thought I was going to. Oh, there they are. The drums do add some snares here and there, and we can kind of talk through that at a different point, but you can see them and hear them here. So just some extra snare drums. That does not play every time. I believe it would kind of rotate between the more simple version of it and then these extra snare drums. Now again, the drums in the actual song, let me get rid of this thing, don't even start until measure 9. And it's just, you can make them at measure 1, whatever's easier for you, and move them. They're good. This doesn't even exist yet. We're not talking about that. Now, 808s. I want you to put in contact, and I will kind of walk through how to do that in person again. By the way, this instrument can be found under libraries. So when you put in contact, which is what I recommend for the guitar, you'll find the factory library, not the factory selection. And if you see that these are kind of folders, if you're in a folder and see an arrow up, it means that you are in a folder. And you can click on that arrow to kind of take you back up to the higher spot in the hierarchy. And under band and guitar, there is a nylon string guitar. Double click on that. It sounds pretty good. Let's get rid of the original. Okay, so for the 808, what we're going to do is insert contact again. And this, what I have as a library for 808s is not found in the actual library list. But if you click on Files on your desktop, you should see a folder called 808 Warfare. And when you click on it, you are in the top level of the folder, and there are a number of these different 808s. If you were to open that up, you could get some slides and some other types of 808s. However, we're just going to kind of double click on one of these. This would be a compressed 808. And you can kind of go through this folder by using these arrows. Don't double click on one of these again, or else you're going to end up with 2 of them, and that's going to get confusing. Okay, so just as it's playing, that's actually a nice one. All right, I'm just going to use that one for now. I find it a little bit long, so I'm going to adjust the release to get a little bit, that's even longer. I'm going to leave it at 1.8 for the demo. Okay, get it done. Now, the 808s, an 808 is a bass and a kick drum. It's a bass in that it plays different pitches. It's a kick drum in that it is synced up with the kick drum, and it actually comes from an old drum machine, and this is a kick drum. These are playing the roots of the chords, and it is a 4-measure loop essentially. This A flat, 2 Bs, G flat, and then 2 E's. The only difference between the first 2 measures and the second 2 measures is these extra E's again that go along with the drum. So if I bring in the drum beat, you should be able to kind of see that our 808s always match up to a kick drum. And that's pretty typical. Remember, we've talked about the relationship between bass and kick. Okay, so the basic pattern of our 3 instruments here, guitar, drums, and 808, will sound like this. For what is this, 8 measures? It doesn't need to do 8 measures. I will just do 4 measures because that is the pattern. I had an issue here that I'm having to deal with, and I don't like dealing with it. I lost my first part of my arpeggio. And you can play around with different kick drum 808s. There is another really good one that's called, I thought I found it and it sounded good. And it was actually called Rockstar. Let's see. Maybe this is, there we go. Let's do Rockstar. It's a little dirtier, but it's also really, really long. So I'm going to bring this down to 1.8 or so, which was what the last one was. Better. All right, we'll talk about arrangement and stuff like that.